Hey, it's the Explore and More show with Ted and Ken. Ted being the expert, Ken being the rookie. I was just thinking before we kind of got on camera here, I'm thinking about Europe, and I've got so many questions. Like, how do you do it the right way? Is there an easy way to do it? I'm sure there's a hard way to do it.
There's always a hard way.
I'd probably pick that way to start with. Mr. Expert Ted, could you help me out with that?
Yeah. So my name is Ted Blank, and I am a travel expert. I own a travel agency, and over the last 10 years or so, I've planned hundreds of cruises and other adventures for my clients. And so I think Europe is a great topic to start us off today.
Love it.
And, Ken, sometimes people ask me questions, and the answer I always give is, well, maybe a river cruise is a good idea. And I think for people who have never been to Europe before, or for people who've maybe gone to Europe before but want to see a little different side of things.
Yeah.
I think a river cruise can be a really, really great way to do that.
Interesting.
And certainly, everybody knows somebody who's been on a river cruise. If it hasn't been you, it might have been your neighbors, and they've probably raved about it.
Yeah.
So river cruises are pretty popular, and let's maybe kind of demystify them a little bit, and we can talk about why I think they're a great way to experience Europe. And then maybe we'll take a little bit of a dive into one of my favorite river cruises as well.
Nice.
So,
I always think of like a river cruise as like kind of the training wheels, getting into cruising.
It is.
Because I think of like big open water cruising, like around the world stuff. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I think a river I could do.
Yeah, well, some people who just are a little bit nervous about, motion sickness or something, they might want to start on a river cruise. But, I think when you're thinking about going to Europe and seeing those major attractions, the big cities that have the cathedrals and the museums and things like that, but also seeing that other side of Europe, the smaller towns, the agricultural areas where you really can kind of get underneath the surface of a country. River cruises give you both.
Love it.
And they have the added advantage of being very convenient. So your floating hotel floats with you.
I love that.
And it's amazing how efficient that makes your trip. And on a river cruise, you can see way more than you can see on any other type of a vacation. And it has the added advantage of having a great crew, great cuisine. It's a great experience. But it really allows you to see a lot of Europe, places you couldn't necessarily see, from a land-based program, but just having that convenience of not having to pack and unpack as you float through the world. You see a lot of places. It's really, in my opinion, the best way to explore Europe.
Years ago, my wife and I, we explored Ireland via bus. With our in-laws. Yep. It was fun, but it was tough, the packing and unpacking in a new hotel every night. And when I think about what you're saying, that just seems so great.
And think about how inefficient it is and how much time you just waste getting downstairs for breakfast, then you go back upstairs, you pack your bag, and all of a sudden it's 10 a.m. and you haven't done anything. Whereas on a river cruise, while you were sleeping, the ship moved, took you to a new destination.
Amazing.
You wake up, you have a really nice breakfast, and off you go, and you can explore the city.
And I would guess those river cruises, I've seen those ships, they're not half as big as some of these mega ocean liners, right? So it's a little bit more.
The average river cruise ship carries about 150 to 200 passengers. And so there are about a dozen different river cruise lines out there, and they all have, there are a lot of differences between the cruise lines. But I think, it's a smaller ship, much more intimate experience. And if you go from a big ship cruise to a river cruise ship, you're going to get a little bit of culture shock in a good way. In a good way. And so then the next time you go back to an ocean cruise, you might be more interested in like a small ship cruise or something like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And do the river ships, do they have the amenities? Do they have the outdoor seating? Do they have the swimming pools? Some of those like outdoor bars I think about on the big ships.
Yeah, so river cruise ships are designed for destination cruising. So the focus is going to be on the destination.
Okay.
But many of them have staterooms that have balconies that you can sit outside and enjoy. A lot of them have great suites as well. They all have beautiful sun decks, open spaces where you can just sit and enjoy and watch the world go by.
Love it.
Some have pools, some don't. Some have multiple dining venues, some don't. All the river cruises are going to include some shore excursions. Some will include only one, some will include many, and you'll have a choice between them, which is really nice because, you might one day you might really want to go see that cathedral, and the next day, maybe you want to go do a wine tasting or something like that. So there'll be a lot of options available to you, and it's just a relaxing, seamless way, simple way to enjoy Europe and see a lot in a shorter time.
So you talk about the excursions, and I'm just guessing, do you have more active excursions and less active? So if maybe my mom or dad were to come,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe they're not
absolutely.
as spry of a.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's really another one of the things that makes a river cruise a great option is that there is a choice between active excursions. Everything as active as hikes, up mountains, bike rides, things like that,
Wow.
down to much more of like a motor coach tour of a city or a tour of a city that's a gentle walking tour where you're going to walk at an easy pace and have an opportunity to sit down a lot. So
Awesome.
river cruises really accommodate a variety of people.
Awesome.
They're not really good for kids, but they're great for adults who
Yeah.
want to get to Europe, see that culture, maybe enjoy a little bit of wine along the way and just enjoy.
That's great. Now, do you have a cruise in mind that you'd like to talk about today that is on a river, maybe?
Yeah, well,
Hint?
it is very interesting. Good segue there, Ken. It is interesting because I think a lot of people will come to ask me and say, "What's the best river cruise to start on?"
Yeah.
And the honest answer is it doesn't matter. Whichever one you choose, you're going to love. You're going to fall in love with it, and you're going to go back and take more. So there are a lot of ways you could take your first river cruise. But I tend to be of the opinion that people going to Europe are looking to experience the history and the culture, but they also want to experience the food and the wine.
100%.
And so one of my favorite river cruises is with a company called AMA Waterways. They're a premium cruise line, and they have a cruise called the Vineyards of the Rhine and the Moselle River. And so it does a fantastic job of combining some of those kind of marquee city attractions with some real neat wine type experiences. And so it's a 7-night cruise. It starts in Amsterdam and it ends in Luxembourg,
Okay.
which most people probably couldn't find on a map. But you'll
I
have
know
an
the name. I
opportunity- yeah, you've
couldn't
heard the
find it.
name.
I'm
A
like,
lot of people have heard the
Luxembourg.
name.
I've heard.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but you'll have an opportunity to spend a little bit of time in Amsterdam
Yeah.
and explore the city.
Fine.
Take a canal cruise, which is a really neat way to see
Fine.
the city on not your river cruise ship doesn't go in the canals, but you go on a little canal tour boat. So you'll see like the Anne Frank house from the outside. You'll see some of the beautiful architecture in Amsterdam dating back from when, back in the day, Amsterdam was one of the wealthiest cities in the world. It was like the Singapore of
Wow.
Europe. So there's a lot of interesting history there. And then you head south into Germany, and we'll visit the city of Cologne. And Cologne is, of course, famous for its cathedral, which is one of the largest cathedrals in the world. It took them over 1,000 years to build it. So
Hold on, time out.
Yeah.
Not 100.
no,
1,000 years.
to build it. Yeah. So
Wow.
a lot of things, a lot of water under the bridge, if you will, to get that bridge to get that cathedral built. But it's an incredible
That's amazing.
Gothic cathedral. It's one
Yeah.
of the largest cathedrals in Western Europe. It is home to the bones of the wise men, so you can actually go see them. Wow. But it's also
Goosebumps over here.
Isn't
About
it cool?
This is
Isn't it
really
cool?
cool. Yeah.
also a very interesting cultural city. And Cologne in particular is kind of like Milwaukee.
Yeah.
They make a lot of beer there. So you can actually go to the cathedral and learn about the local beer and taste it, have some beer and some pretzels.
Wow.
So
How
how much
fun.
more German can you be than that?
You said you had me at beer. I mean,
I know. And then the neat thing is, even if you're not super into beer,
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to just taste what beer tastes like. 'Cause
sure.
it tastes a little different than the beer we're drinking.
that's awesome.
Here. Yeah.
That's
So then ship keeps heading south, and it hits one of the scenic highlights, I think, of all of European river cruising, and that's an area called the Rhine Gorge. And the Rhine Gorge is where the Rhine River gets really narrow,
Okay.
and it gets really curvy. So it's like all these S-curves, and it's just amazing to watch the captain navigate the ship through there and pass other ships.
Wow.
But all along the mountains, or the bluffs really on the side of the river, there are castles. And so as you sail through the Rhine Gorge, there's actually narration from an expert
Really?
who will help you understand some of the history
Wow.
of these castles, which is a really interesting thing. But it's beautiful. You just sit on your balcony, have a cup of coffee, have a glass of wine, and enjoy the world going by.
Oh my
And
gosh.
It's really, really
I'm kind of
scenic.
picturing it in my head right
Yeah.
now, like maybe being on the top deck, wine or something, and there's somebody's narrating. It's almost
Exactly.
like from above.
It is. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. And it is one of the most scenic stretches of the European waterway system. So if you're interested in kind of seeing some of that outdoor scenery, I think this is a great
Love it.
option. So the ship keeps going. It docks in a little town called Rudisill. And Rudisill is this beautiful little kind of, almost a tourist village.
Okay.
Very beautiful German architecture surrounded by vineyards. So this will be your first glimpse
fun.
of the vineyards. And you can go hike up into the vineyard. You can take a cable car up to the top down,
Wow.
and you just, an opportunity to taste some of the regional wine. And then the ship is going to actually go a little bit further north, and it docks underneath one of those castles.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the cool things that it does is that at dusk, you get a chance to go up to the castle. You don't have to walk. They'll take you up there on a motor coach. And you get to tour the castle by candlelight.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just really, really cool. Maybe you've been to one of the big castles in Europe, like Versailles or something like that.
Sure.
But this one, candlelight, pretty neat experience.
How interesting.
Yeah,
By I have to imagine by candlelight, it's just a whole nother experience.
It
I mean,
is.
it's dark out.
Yeah.
It kind of is a throwback to how
it was.
it used to be, right?
Exactly. It was. It was candlelight for most of its existence.
So cool.
Yeah. The next morning, you wake up as the ship enters the Mosel River. And if the Rhine River is like the Mississippi River, the Cologne River, or the Mosel River is a much smaller tributary.
Okay.
Much narrower. Ships can't pass. So one of them has to stop while the other one goes by.
Wow.
And the river is really narrow, really curvy, and it's surrounded on both sides by very steep mountains where they grow wine. So one of my recommendations is to go in the fall when the grapes are ready for harvest, because all the fall colors erupt into life. Wow. And you have these just tapestries of like gold and copper and orange all along the river as far as the eye can see. So it's just breathtaking scenery.
Quick rookie question. So when you go in the fall, does that mean the fall for us here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So September, early November is, I think, one of the best times to go and experience. And a lot of the towns will have wine harvest festivals going on, so you might happen on one of those. But you'll stop at a couple little towns, and they tend to have two things. They have a castle, and some of these you can actually hike up to,
Okay.
And get just incredible views. And they grow wine there. And in particular, they grow Riesling wine,
Really?
which is a very popular white wine. So that is grown in the Moselle area.
Really?
And
So that's kind of specific to that
very
region?
specific to that area. Yeah, and it's everything from dessert wine to just kind of regular wine that one could drink with a meal. And the neat thing is when you go to some of these vineyards, you can taste, you can enjoy. They'll have a tour where you can see how it's made. You can buy some and take with you. And the really wise vineyards actually give you a little card that tells you where you can find it in the United States.
Brilliant.
So I think it's really cool. So you can relive it when you get back home. And I happen to have a bottle of sparkling wine, so sort of like a champagne type wine that I picked up the last time I was there. That I haven't had an occasion to crack it open yet, but almost ready to do that.
How fun.
You'll spend 3 days on the Rhine through the Moselle. So it's a really, really great combination of kind of prime, tourist attractions and a much more off the beaten path area.
And the Moselle, when you go off the Rhine on the Moselle, is that still Germany that you're in?
It's Germany.
Okay.
Yep. So once you leave Holland, you'll be in Germany the entire time until the very end of the cruise.
Okay.
And then you cross the river and dock in Luxembourg.
Oh.
But if you lean over the ship and throw a baseball, you'll hit Germany. So you're pretty much in Germany.
He's right there.
So you can head home right from there.
Yeah.
Or what I would recommend is consider one of the post-cruise extensions that they offer to the Champagne region of France.
Wow.
So you'll have a chance to visit Luxembourg and then head into Champagne and really discover a totally, totally different style of wine that's produced in Champagne, that sparkling wine that everyone enjoys. And then you head off to Paris and head home.
That's great.
So it's a 7-night cruise. We put some details of it down in the description below, so you can see the full details, the itinerary, the dates, the pricing. And my team and I would love to have folks plan that cruise, so they can just click the box and request more information, and we'll get back to them, and we'll talk about this, can explain other cruises to them, and also just help to make the entire experience easy and stress-free, whether it's your first time going to Europe or your 21st time.
That's awesome. I got a rookie question for you. You talk about extending your stay at the end. Can you do that on the front side too? I would assume you could.
Yes, in fact you can, and I always recommend that people go to Europe at least a day before the cruise starts, because if there's a problem with the airline flights, which of course never happens, right?
Oh gosh,
never.
no.
You don't want to miss the cruise.
Yeah.
So you can go a day beforehand,
Okay.
and the cruise line also offers a great pre-cruise program in Amsterdam.
Oh.
It's a 2-night program, and so you have a chance to see more of Amsterdam, go on a walking tour of the city, and then you head out into the Dutch countryside to this village that has windmills, cheese,
Come on.
and then you can actually get your own custom-made wooden clogs. So
Gosh.
they measure your foot. They literally piece of wood off the pile and put it on the machine, and bzz, 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 and you walk away with a pair of clogs.
Oh my gosh.
And you can paint them yourself, or they'll paint them for you.
My wife would love it if I came home with some
Yeah,
clogs.
I
at
think
some
it'd be
point.
kind of yeah. Well, they're kind of the middle-aged man's signature footwear.
Perfect.
So, yeah. So I mean, how much more Dutch?
That's
Dutch can you
great.
be? And that's I think one of the things that does also really enhance a river cruise experience are the pre and the post cruise programs, because then you can go places where maybe there aren't rivers, but you still have kind of that core, really, really relaxed and stress-free trip to bookend.
I love it. Great idea. I'm ready to start booking right now.
All right. Well, we told you how. You
I
can
know
pop
who to
down
call.
in the description and fill out the information, or you can also visit tedblanktravel.com, and we're happy to plan this.